Night, a remote campsite deep in the tropical savanna of the Northern Territory, right here in Australia. A lone traveller is fast asleep inside a swag, a warm breeze rustling the dry speargrass outside. The campfire has died down to a dull orange glow. Everything seems entirely still, yet out here in the Australian wilderness, absolute silence is an illusion. Moving with chilling deliberate intent through the leaf litter is a predator shaped by millions of years of evolutionary perfection. It does not possess paws or fur, nor does it rely on stealthy canine cunning. Instead, it is a creature that commands absolute respect across the entire Australian continent. The southern cassowary, known scientifically as Cassowarius cassowarius. The camper remains completely unconscious, oblivious to the heavy, three-toed tracks printing into the dust mere meters from his head. This massive bird, standing nearly 2 meters tall, moves through the dense undergrowth with an uncanny, silent grace that defies its immense bulk. Its glossy black plumage shifts like fluid shadow against the moonlight. As it approaches the edge of the campsite, the bird lowers its brilliant blue and purple neck, its prehistoric-looking casque catching the faint lunar light. It is searching for fallen fruit, but its keen senses are highly tuned to any sudden movement or threat in its territory. On each inner toe, the cassowary wields a weapon of legendary reputation, a straight, dagger-like claw reaching up to 12 centimetres in length. If cornered or provoked, it can launch a devastating kick, a swift and powerful downward strike capable of slicing through flesh and muscle with ease. The camper suddenly stirs, waking to a deep, resonant vibration that seems to shake the very ground beneath his chest. Peering through the mesh of the swag, he freezes. Standing right there in the dim light is a magnificent, modern-day dinosaur, looking down with an intense, amber gaze. The bird does not run. It is completely unbothered by the human presence, standing its ground with an air of ancient authority before melting back into the shadows of the monsoon forest. In the next few minutes, the sheer adrenaline of that encounter begins to sink in. Encountering a cassowary in the wild evokes a primal sort of awe. This is not the familiar, gentle image of Australian wildlife often projected to the world. It is an encounter with a formidable living relic of Gondwana. For decades, terrifying myths have surrounded this bird, painting it as a ruthless, aggressive man-killer hiding in the dense rainforests of Queensland and Northern Australia. But the truth uncovered by modern science is far more fascinating than any sensationalized campfire horror story. The cassowary is not a mindless monster looking for a fight. Its formidable armory is an evolutionary shield, a defensive response developed over deep time, and its role as a keystone species is vital to the survival of the entire tropical ecosystem. Today, we are going to unpack this extraordinary creature completely. We will explore more than 60 million years of avian evolution, the complex acoustics of a voice that human ears can feel rather than hear, and a staggering historical reality about the size of ancient Australian megafauna that will completely transform how you view the modern Australian bush. It is a journey into the heart of Australia's ancient natural heritage. So let us take a closer look at a creature that truly defines the untamed spirit of the wild north. To understand the cassowary, one must first look at where it sits on the evolutionary tree of Australia. The cassowary is frequently compared to the emu, and while that is accurate in a broad taxonomic sense, it represents only a small fraction of the story. The southern cassowary belongs to the ratite group, an ancient lineage of flightless birds that includes the African ostrich, the South American rhea, and Australia's own emu. They are a distinct branch of avian life that diverged from flying ancestors shortly after the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, choosing a path of terrestrial dominance. In Australia, the southern cassowary is the heavyweight champion of the rainforest, occupying a niche that simply does not exist anywhere else on the Australian continent. While smaller species and subspecies exist across the Torres Strait, the Australian population represents the peak of this lineage's physical scale and ecological impact. They are found across the wet tropics of far North Queensland, from the coastal lowlands of Mission Beach right up to the remote, rugged rainforests of Cape York Peninsula. This specific geographical distribution is no accident. The tropical climate, consistent rainfall and high planter diversity provide the exact conditions necessary for this giant bird to thrive year-round. In the dense canopy of the Australian rainforest, the cassowary stands as one of the most significant top-tier herbivores and seed dispersers, shaping the very structure of the forest floor through its daily foraging habits. The physical design of a cassowary is a marvel of natural engineering. Resembling a heavily armoured locomotive, designed to crash through dense jungle without taking damage. Its body is covered in coarse, hair-like feathers that lack the barbules found in flying birds. Instead of providing lift, this unique plumage acts as a protective coat of mail, deflecting sharp twigs, thorns and lawyer cane as the bird moves at high speeds through the thickest parts of the Australian bush. Despite its flightless nature, the cassowary retains tiny vestigial wings, which end in several bare, black quills that curve around the bird's flanks like protective ribs. But the most striking feature is undoubtedly the helm, or casque, a prominent, helmet-like structure atop its head. For centuries, scientists have debated the true purpose of this helmet. Some argued it was used as a shovel to dig for fallen fruit, while others believed it served as a physical shield to protect the skull during high-speed dashes through the undergrowth. Modern research utilizing advanced scanning technology suggests a much more sophisticated purpose. The casque is covered in a tough layer of keratin, the same material as a human fingernail, but the interior is highly vascular and filled with a spongy, porous bone matrix. This structure acts as a thermal radiator, helping the bird shed excess body heat in the stifling, humid conditions of tropical Australia. Furthermore, it is believed to act as an acoustic receiver, catching the low-frequency acoustic pulses that cassowaries use to communicate through kilometers of dense, sound-muffling rainforest foliage. When you observe a cassowary navigating the terrain, the sheer power of its lower limbs becomes immediately apparent. The legs are thick and muscular, capable of propelling the 50-kilogram bird at speeds approaching 50 kilometers per hour through the tangled rainforest. Unlike most birds which possess 4 toes, the cassowary has only 3 forward-facing toes, an adaptation that maximizes stability and forward thrust on uneven, slippery ground. The deadly inner claw is not an instrument of active predation. The cassowary is predominantly a frugivore, consuming vast quantities of native fruits. Instead, that dagger-like claw is an ultimate insurance policy against predators. When threatened by a dingo or cornered by a human, the cassowary can leap nearly 2 meters straight up into the air, kicking downward with immense force. The musculature of the leg, combined with the sharpness of the claw, can inflict severe, deep lacerations. Yet, recorded incidents of serious injury to humans in Australia are incredibly rare, almost always linked to birds that have been habituated by people feeding them illegally. Left to its own devices, this magnificent creature prefers to avoid human contact entirely, using its exceptional hearing and camouflage to vanish into the green long before a tracker even notices its presence. This blend of immense power and reclusive behaviour makes the southern cassowary one of the most enigmatic and respected icons of the Australian wild. To truly grasp how this magnificent bird operates in the wild, one must look closely at its sensory world and foraging strategy. The cassowary is a creature perfectly adapted to the dim, dappled light of the ancient Australian rainforest canopy. While its eyes are large and possess a piercing, amber-coloured intensity, its vision is specially tuned to detect subtle movements and the vibrant, specific colours of tropical fruits amidst a sea of dense green foliage. However, in the thick undergrowth of far North Queensland, sight alone is not enough. The bird relies heavily on an extraordinary sense of hearing. The rainforest is a noisy place, filled with the calls of insects, frogs, and smaller birds, but the cassowary operates on a different acoustic wavelength. It can detect ultra-low frequency sounds that travel effortlessly through dense vegetation and over long distances across the rugged terrain of northern Australia. This ability to tune into the deep rumbling frequencies of the forest allows a solitary cassowary to maintain a massive territory, knowing exactly when a rival or a potential mate is entering its domain long before any physical contact is made. When it comes to sustaining its massive body, the southern cassowary is a highly specialised eater, functioning as the ultimate guardian of Australian rainforest diversity. It is primarily a frugivore, and its daily routine revolves around a constant patrol for fallen fruits. The sheer volume of food a single adult bird consumes is staggering. A mature cassowary can swallow fruits the size of a large plum or an avocado entirely whole. Its digestive system is uniquely adapted to handle this diet. Unlike many animals that crush seeds or break them down with powerful stomach acids, the cassowary's digestive tract is remarkably gentle on the seeds themselves. The bird digests only the fleshy, nutritious outer pulp of the fruit, while the seeds pass through its system completely intact and undamaged. This process is often incredibly rapid, meaning the seeds are deposited across the forest floor hours later, neatly packaged in a rich mound of natural fertilizer. This unique digestive trait makes the cassowary a vital keystone species. In Australia, there are more than 100 species of rainforest plants that rely almost exclusively on the southern cassowary for their survival and dispersal. Some of these plants produce seeds that are simply too large for any other modern Australian animal to swallow, let alone transport over significant distances. Without the cassowary acting as a living transport system, these heavy seeds would simply fall directly beneath the parent tree, where they would struggle to find enough light to grow or succumb to fungal diseases in the damp soil. Furthermore, scientists have discovered that the seeds of many native Australian trees actually exhibit significantly higher germination rates after passing through a cassowary's gut. The gentle chemical action of the bird's digestive tract helps to break down tough seed coats, essentially giving the plant a head start when it finally hits the ground. If the cassowary were to disappear from the tropical ecosystems of Australia, the entire composition of the forest would slowly crumble, leading to a drastic decline in plant diversity and the collapse of the complex habitats that support thousands of other unique species. But the cassowary's impact extends far beyond the botanical world. Its presence alters the behaviour of other wildlife in the ecosystem. As a dominant force on the forest floor, its daily movements create a network of clear pathways through the thickest tangles of vines and lawyer cane. Smaller creatures, from scrub fowls to native rodents, utilise these clearings to forage and navigate through the bush. When a cassowary feeds, it often knocks down extra fruit from lower branches or disturbs the leaf litter, inadvertently uncovering a wealth of insects, fungi and small vertebrates for opportunistic feeders trailing in its wake. It is a brilliant example of how a single species can dictate the energy flow of an entire environment. Despite its formidable size and reputation, the cassowary is not an aggressive tyrant of the woods. It is a peaceful harvester whose very existence keeps the ancient heart of the Australian wilderness beating. The interaction between the cassowary and its environment highlights a beautifully coordinated evolutionary dance that has played out over deep time on the Australian continent. Every aspect of the bird's anatomy, from its protective, hair-like plumage to its digestive system, is perfectly tailored to meet the demands of its habitat. It is a creature that cannot be separated from the forest it creates. When you walk through the ancient, misty forests of the Daintree, you are walking through a landscape that has been literally shaped, planted, and maintained by the tireless footsteps of this flightless giant. It stands as a living testament to the complexity of Australia's natural history, a magnificent link to a past era when giant creatures ruled the land, reminding us that true ecological balance relies on the preservation of these intricate, ancient relationships. The deeper secrets of this magnificent bird lie buried in the ancient history of the Australian continent. To look at a southern cassowary today is to gaze into a living mirror of the Kamenogolny period's modern equivalent, the deep time of Australia's megafaunal past. 60 million years ago, as the supercontinent Gondwana began to splinter apart, the landmass that would become Australia isolated itself from the rest of the world. In this grand isolation, free from the dominant placental mammals that conquered other continents, avian lineages embarked on a radical evolutionary trajectory. The ancestors of the cassowary stepped into the ecological vacancies left behind by the dinosaurs, scaling up in size and transforming into the heavy-bodied, ground-dwelling forces we see today. During the Pleistocene epoch, the Australian bush was a realm of true giants. Modern cassowaries shared these ancient forests with legendary Australian megafauna, such as the diprotodon, a marsupial the size of a rhinoceros, and giant flightless birds that would make today's species look positively modest by comparison. While many of those colossal creatures vanished during the late Quaternary extinction event, the cassowary endured, navigating the shifting climates of prehistoric Australia by refining its role as a master of the tropical refuge. This long-term survival is directly tied to the unexpected complexity of the bird's social dynamics and reproductive behaviour, which completely shatters the myth of the cassowary as a primitive, unthinking creature. In the wild, trackless expanses of the Queensland wet tropics, the traditional roles of avian parenting are entirely flipped on their head. Female cassowaries are the dominant, larger sex, often weighing up to 70 kilograms and sporting brighter, more vibrant colours on their necks than their male counterparts. They hold massive territories that encompass the smaller ranges of several males. When the breeding season arrives during the Australian winter between June and October, the female courts a male with a display of immense power and deep, earth-shaking vocalizations. Once she accepts a suitor, she lays a clutch of 3 to 5 enormous, bright pea-green eggs in a shallow nest scooped directly out of the rainforest floor. But as soon as the last egg is delivered, her maternal duties are effectively complete. She leaves the nest to seek out another male within her territory, leaving her partner behind to carry the entire burden of the next generation. For the next 2 months, the male cassowary demonstrates a level of dedication that is virtually unmatched in the Australian animal kingdom. He sits on the eggs continuously for around 50 days, rarely leaving the nest even to drink or forage for food. During this grueling incubation period, the male loses a significant portion of his body weight, relying entirely on his fat reserves while remaining hypervigilant against potential predators like pythons, dingoes, and monitor lizards. When the striped, downy chicks finally hatch, the father's role transforms from passive incubator to fierce protector. He guides the vulnerable young through the treacherous terrain of northern Australia for up to 9 months, teaching them how to identify safe fruits, decode the subtle scents of the forest, and navigate the complex topography of the bush. If a threat approaches his brood, the male will defend his chicks with ferocious bravery, puffing out his feathers and utilising those 12-centimetre inner claws to drive away any intruder. This prolonged period of paternal care is a sophisticated, learned process, ensuring that the next generation of this ancient lineage possesses the precise skills required to survive in the competitive ecosystems of tropical Australia. This high level of intelligence and adaptability is further reflected in modern behavioural studies. In controlled research environments across Australia, zoologists have noted that cassowaries exhibit a remarkable capacity for spatial memory and problem-solving. A wild cassowary remembers the exact location of hundreds of different fruit-bearing trees within its vast territory, tracking their seasonal ripening cycles with pinpoint accuracy so it never wastes energy visiting a barren grove. Furthermore, these birds display a distinct ability to learn from past experiences. A young cassowary that encounters a dangerous obstacle or an unpalatable food source will actively alter its behaviour in future encounters, proving that their actions are guided by a functioning memory rather than mere instinctual reflex. They are highly discerning observers of their environment, constantly monitoring temperature, humidity, and food availability to make calculated decisions about where to rest and forage. It is this combination of ancient physical resilience and sharp, adaptive intelligence that has allowed the cassowary to reign supreme across its specialised niche on the Australian continent for millions of years, standing out as one of the most intellectually fascinating and evolutionarily successful creatures in the entire Southern Hemisphere. In contemporary times, the relationship between human society and this ancient avian titan has reached a critical turning point across the Australian continent. As the urban footprint expands into the coastal lowlands of Queensland, the natural boundaries of the bush are increasingly blurred. This brings us to the core of observation ethics when dealing with a creature of such formidable power and ecological significance. The southern cassowary does not require our affection, nor does it seek out our companionship. It is a wild animal that has operated under a flawless biological blueprint for millions of years, entirely independent of human sentiment. The greatest threat to their survival in modern Australia is not an inherent hostility toward humans, but rather the unintended consequences of human curiosity and encroachment. When tourists and residents offer food to these birds, it disrupts their natural foraging instincts and habituates them to human presence. A habituated cassowary loses its natural wariness, venturing onto busy coastal roads where they frequently fall victim to vehicular strikes, or wandering into residential properties where they face attacks from domestic dogs. True respect for Australia's prehistoric heritage means appreciating these birds from a disciplined, ethical distance. Witnessing a southern cassowary stepping out from the emerald shadows of the Daintree rainforest is undoubtedly one of the most breathtaking wildlife experiences available on the Australian continent. It is a moment that should evoke a sense of profound privilege rather than an opportunity for a close-up photograph or an irresponsible interaction. By ensuring our food scraps are secured, respecting wildlife corridors, and understanding that their formidable defensive weapons are only deployed when they feel trapped or threatened, we can coexist with this magnificent species. The survival of this keystone giant ensures that the ancient, complex tropical ecosystems of northern Australia will continue to flourish exactly as they have done for countless generations. We began this journey with a silent encounter in the depths of the tropical savanna night. Breaking down the mechanics of a creature built like an avian locomotive, we explored the extraordinary acoustic capabilities of its vascular casque, a structure that functions as both a thermal radiator and a deep-frequency receiver. We witnessed the radical role reversal of its reproductive cycle, where the male takes on the grueling, dedicated burden of incubating the vibrant green eggs and raising the vulnerable chicks in the competitive heart of the Australian bush. And finally, we uncovered how this single bird holds the literal future of the rainforest in its gentle digestive tract, planting the very trees that define its home. It is a creature of absolute necessity, an ancient survivor that has outlasted mass extinctions and megafaunal collapses without losing a single shred of its evolutionary perfection. The southern cassowary stands as a proud living monument to the untamed spirit of Australia. By understanding its true nature and protecting its wild habitat, we ensure that this magnificent modern dinosaur continues to patrol the ancient forests of the north, keeping the rhythm of the wilderness alive for aeons to come.